Wasabi guys, I'm coming back at you with another deck tech. It is Void here. Just want to show you guys all these awesome cards. And this is a Yidris Maelstrom Wielder deck. And he is pretty damn cool. Now, one of the obvious misconceptions here is that you have to build more of a Voltron, build around him, use stuff like Bear Umbra, sort of Feast and Famine, just to make it really work and get the untap triggers and throw in some extra combat tricks and all to that type of strategy, when in reality you can just basically go Superstorm with this type of deck and it really works beautifully. And I'm not going to bother going over the lands here because it's pretty obvious. You all know you just play as many fetch lands as you can, as many shocks, get the best mana fixing as possible. There's really, no purpose in playing utility lands. You're trying to win the game as quickly as possible with this type of deck, so shouldn't have to go too far into guessing what the land base is supposed to be. Just cards like Command Tower, Mana Confluence, City of Brass, and Exotic Orchard, and you pretty much have it there. So let's just get into the actual artifact ramp here, because some people may not understand what it takes to make a good deck and win quickly. So we have Soul Rings, pretty obvious. We all know that. Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, and Gilded Lotus, all of these are very good. They're very cheap, and what they do is they get us a ton of mana early on, and it helps us really get going. The quicker we can do that, the quicker we can get to our enablers, and then the quicker we can get to our finishers. So they're very important. And then what's also important, because we do have a card in here that helps us untap artifacts, we play all 6 of these signets that you can play in these colors. We play Dimmer Signet, Izzet Signet, Golgari Signet, Simic Signet, Rakdos Signet, and Gruul Signet. All of these are important. Mana fixing is just important in 4 colors. It's very difficult to find all the mana you need if you don't have these types of mana fixing artifacts in your deck. Now, we do play other ramp, and this is kind of symbolic of Storm decks in general, trying to win as quickly as possible. We have Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Manamorphose, and Sky Shroud Claim. Although some of these may not be as big of a deal as they might seem, like Manamorphose is more of a modern Storm card. However, getting to draw a card for free, or just getting this off a Cascade trigger and getting 2 free mana and a card draw is not terrible. It could be a lot better, but it's not. It could be a lot worse than that. And we have Sky Shroud Claim, which is just basically, okay, you get off Cascade, you get 2 free untapped forests, and it's just forests, and so you can search up a dual land or shock land there. So that's not bad at all. Dark Ritual and Cabal Ritual are kind of iffy sometimes because, yeah, you do want different colored mana, but it's still mana ramp, and getting it off a Cascade helps you continue your turn, and you can still cast artifacts with black mana, so why not? But not always the optimal choice. Then, for any good deck that's trying to go off and combo really quickly, tutors are very important. We play a decent number of them. We have Mystical Tutor to basically get whatever we want on the top of our deck. It might be a wheel, it might be some sort of storm card, whatever it is. We want to be able to get it as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, it doesn't get it right to our hands, but we can always draw into it. Then we play Vampiric Tutor, which is going to get us anything. The same thing as Demonic Tutor and Dark Petition, but it's just at the top. And we have Demonic and Dark Petition, which are basically the same card. The only difference is Dark Petition requires you to have Spell Mastery, and if you do, it gives you the 3 black mana, so it's almost like a Demonic Tutor, but it does ramp you up if you Cascade into it, which is better. It has that going for it. Then we play Fabricate to basically get any artifacts we need. There's one in particular, which I'll get to later, that's the most important card in the deck. That just helps the whole deck work together. And being able to just tutor up an artifact is always good. We have good mana fixing, we have good ramp spells. Why the hell not? Then we play Bring to Light, because if you Cascade into this, we have a lot of 0 CMC cards in here, especially the ones with Suspend. Being able to Bring to Light and just get that out of our deck, even if we don't get to Cascade into it, it's usually something that if we put enough mana into it, we can get something decent for 4 or less. It's not always going to be terrible regardless of how you get it. Then we just have good card draw here, which is very similar to Nekasar decks. We play a ton of wheels. Winds of Change here, just good 1 mana, gets us a pretty good hand. It is dependent on what the cards we already have, but it's still good card draw. We have Wheel of Fortune, which is, discard all your hand and draw 7 there. Windfall, you discard, draw cards equal to the maximum number of cards in someone's hand. Same thing with Whispering Madness. Ancient Excavation, which is one of my favorite cards. You draw equal to the number of cards in your hand, and then you discard that number of cards, so you can really just filter out what you really want and just let go of what you don't. Paradoxical Outcome. There are many times where you're going to be playing this deck, you have a ton of mana just floating, and you Paradoxical Outcome and then play it all again. You draw a bunch of cards and you get to play even more spells, and it's one of those cards that it sees a ton of play now. I think it's a vintage playable card now, which is awesome because you have all the 0 mana artifacts, and it's really awesome. Then we also have, for card draw, we have Frantic Search and Time Spiral, just good cards that untap our lands. Obviously, Time Spiral's a lot better. It basically can help us recover late game if we have too many cards in our graveyard. Who knows? Frantic Search is just a good way to untap 3 lands if we cascade into it, or cascade into either. They're both really good. Then we have the Suspend Cards. These are cards that are really good. If you happen to cascade into them, you don't have to worry about waiting for the suspend counters. And obviously, if you have something that can, like a Bring to Light, that can help you cast 0 CMC cards, it's always good. We have the Lotus Bloom, which is basically Black Lotus on Suspend. Ancestral Visions, which is the Ancestral Recall. And we have Wheel of Fate, which is the suspended Wheel of Fortune. So very good cards, and definitely worth it if you just want to keep your storm count going there. You want to play spells that are 0, especially if you're playing 1-drops in here. You play a 1-drop after you get the Yidris triggers, and you cascade off of a 1-drop, and you pretty much guarantee that you're going to get a 0 CMC. If it's not Mana Crypt, it's going to be one of these 3, so that's just awesome right there. Now we go on to our enablers. These are the things that help us cast more spells, and they can basically open the game wide open for us at any moment's notice. And we start off here with the Cascade Creatures. We have Shardless Agent, Bloodbraid Elf, Ethereum Horned Sorcerer, Maelstrom Wanderer. Now, you don't have to play all of these. Some decks just play Maelstrom Wanderer, some play Bloodbraid Elf, or just those 2, or maybe they also play Ethereum or Shardless, who knows, but they're all pretty decent options. Whenever you can cascade into other spells, it helps keep your deck going, and it builds your storm count up really well. Can't really complain about that. Then we have a newer card in Rishkar's Expertise. Really good if you just drop out, if you already have a Maelstrom Wanderer out there, or if you have a Yidris out there. You're going to draw a bunch of cards, and then you're going to be able to cast a spell CMC 5 or less, which is just awesome. Builds up your storm count there, helps keep you going there. Keep your foot on the pedal there, and just keep your deck rolling with the storm count. Then we play possibly the most explosive cards in the whole deck here. We have Paradox Engine and Possibility Storm. Just absolutely just chaotic with Possibility Storm. It essentially doubles every single one of your cast triggers. You get the original cast, then you search for another card and it casts that one, so your storm count is just going to be absolutely ridiculous. So it's no wonder why it belongs in here, being able to get more cast triggers and storm count just going through the roof with this type of card. And Paradox Engine, easily the most important card in the whole deck. It's what makes it really work well. It's why we play Fabricate specifically for this card. And every time you cast something, you're getting untapped triggers. You're going to untap your mana, which is why it's so important to play the Signets, because you want to get as much mana as possible floating with this type of deck. It's why we play a ton of wheels too. So we wheel into another wheel into another wheel and just keep getting untapped triggers. And eventually we're going to have a storm count that is so ridiculously high that we can't help but to win the game at that point. Then we go on to our finishers. And naturally, when we're talking about a storm deck, we have the storm cards. Grape Shot, Tendrils of Agony, Mind's Desire. We don't need to really play Empty the Warrens, because usually we need a haste enabler to make something like that just win on our turn. So we don't really want to have that in our deck. We want to have these 3 here because these have the best chance of helping us win the game whenever we happen to cast it. Tendrils and Grape Shot are usually just going to, it's going to usually just vote one player out at a time. and usually until you get the other one. So these can be game enders for one opponent, but they're usually just going to help you win the game even quicker. Mind's Desire is just absolutely ridiculous. If you get a high enough storm count with Mind's Desire, you might as well just, your opponents might as well just scoop, because there's no way that you're not going to win at that point. Then you have Molten Psyche, which is honestly one of the more underrated cards that you could put in a deck like this. You are playing a ton of wheel effects. You're playing a ton of cards that just draw your opponents and have them discard their hands and redraw their hands. So over the long course of your turn, your opponents you're drawing 40, 50, 60 cards. Meanwhile, you just have this somewhere in your library, and you happen to either cascade into it, or you just hard cast it. Either way, that's a lot of damage that you're just going to deal to your opponents, and it's not even something that they're usually going to expect. It's usually they're either expecting Storm or something similar to that, and Molten Psyche just comes out of nowhere and wins you the game. It's just awesome. Then we have Flux Reservoir. Might as well just say Storm on there. Basically, each time you cast a spell, you gain life equal to the number of spells you've already cast this turn. Absolutely just a devastating card. Again, it does have that downside to, if you don't have enough Storm triggers, you're going to have to just start voting players out of the game, which is not a bad thing. It can take a while if you're playing this type of deck, so your opponents are obviously going to scoop at this point. So you have just a very explosive and just a very reliable number of finishers here. There's a ton of ways to win with this deck. Obviously, not everything is going to resolve. Not everything is going to work. So we're not playing any counterspells in this deck. We're not playing any control. We're not playing any removal in this deck. So how do we get back into this game? Well, we have two of the best ways to get back into this game, and their names are Yawgmoth's Will and Past in Flames. If your opponents think that they're going to get one up on you by countering Molten Psyche, or if they're going to get one up on you and countering Flux Reservoir, or this or that, or this or that, you play Yawgmoth's Will, and you get back all your shit from your graveyard, and you just recast it all, and you win the game with your reliable win cons that may have been countered. Can recast all of your wheels, you can recast all your cascade spells. You get all of your awesome spells that I just mentioned all over again with Yawgmoth's Will, and Past in Flames isn't too much worse. It is a worse version of it, but it's just for instants and sorceries. It gives them flashbacks, so take it for what it is. It's still a very great way to get back a lot of your Storm win cons, and just a lot of your good cards here, like Molten Psyche and any of your tutors or anything like that. Basically, just get to your win cons to get them back again. So overall, with Yidris, just a very, very entertaining deck here with Storm counts or anything like that. Just very explosive, and I don't think a lot of people, they underestimate the ability of Storm and Commander. They typically think of, Modern, and they think of the Gifts Ungiven, and Gifts Ungiven is a very, very powerful card, and the fact that it's not allowed in Commander definitely, it might hinder this deck's ability, but it's still extremely powerful. Having cards like Yawgmoth's Will in this format, having cards like Wheel of Fortune in this format, having cards like Paradox Engine and Possibility Storm in this format make Storm just a viable option with Yidris, to the point where Yidris himself isn't even the main focus. It's the rest of the deck. It's building up the Storm count. It's just a very entertaining deck to play with, and the only downside I would have to say to it is that, yes, your opponents are going to have to sit there and watch you for 20 or more minutes just go through your deck until you either lose count of your Storm counts, or you lose count of how much mana you have floating in your pool. Either way, you should be able to win very easily in one turn with this deck. That's what it's built to do. Obviously, I didn't mention every single card that you could play. This isn't a deck list or anything, so you guys fill in the blanks there. Put in some good wheels in there that I didn't mention. A whole bunch of those. That's the rest of the deck. That's what it is. And obviously, you have other options for Cascade you can consider, maybe for Storm as well. And obviously for Artifact Ramp, you have stuff like Grim Monolith or Thran Dynamo, options like that I didn't mention because I just didn't think they were that good. but still you have other options that you can fill in the blanks here. So let me know what you guys think about this deck. Would you be entertained with it? Would you want to play it? Let me know. Or just let me know if you want to see other deck lists. Who knows, man. I'll try to get more of these out. They're a pain in the ass for me to do, but I still love doing them. So anyway, guys, Void Mage Gaming here, signing off. You guys have a wonderful day.